In part 1, we discussed 3 men exposed by the Dateline series to catch a predator who ended up taking their own lives amid the public humiliation subsequent to their appearance on the show. Their names were Bill Conradt Jr., Dr. Maurice Wolin, and Ernest Timmons. A link to part 1 can be found in the description. Here in part 2, Lamont and I will be discussing 3 more child predators who also ended their lives after being exposed by the show. Stick around to the end of the video when we'll unveil what is by far the most shocking case, as well as the saddest life story I have ever come across. We begin today with Charles Chuck Harding. Chuck Harding was a travel agent, bus driver, and former Catholic brother. Infamously known for his sickening father-son fetish, which is apparently a thing, he had also been heavily involved in a highly illegal child photography ring for nearly 4 decades. The 65-year-old used the screen name Hard Chuck 1 to lure in young boys with the intent to meet up and have relations. He started chatting with a decoy whom he believed to be a 13-year-old boy named Luke. Harding told the decoy that he could be the young boy's grandpa and that he liked being with young teenage boys. He mentioned that he loved cuddling with them, as well as a myriad of other highly explicit activities which YouTube does not allow me to mention, and for good reason, trust me. After telling the decoy everything he wanted to do with him, Harding thought it would be a good idea to send the decoy copious amounts of the aforementioned child photography. Spoiler alert, it turned out to be a bad idea. Before they met up, Harding instructed the decoy to pose as his grandson out in public to avoid any suspicion. They eventually set up a meeting at the address given by the decoy, and the decoy assures Harding that there wouldn't be anyone else home other than the 2 of them. Once at the Sting house, the decoy, who is actually an adult female named Del Harvey, greets Harding from another room out of sight. The 2 briefly converse until Chris Hansen walks in. Harding, now utterly terrified, spins a wild tale to explain his presence. How original. Hansen ripped Harding's story to shreds and even got a few truthful confessions from Harding toward the end of the encounter. Shockingly, Harding maintained that he saw nothing wrong with a 65-year-old man cuddling with and caressing a 13-year-old boy. He even volunteered his repulsive father-son fetish to Hansen and admitted to fantasizing over it. Harding was charged with 3 felonies: attempted lewd or lascivious acts with a child under 14 years of age, attempted harmful matter sent with the intent of seduction to a minor, and attempted oral copulation with a minor under 14 years of age. His bail was set to $500,000, making it one of the highest bail amounts ever to be associated with To Catch a Predator, as well as Hansen's later series called Hansen vs. Predator. Harding had suffered from a serious heart condition for several years, but a strict regimen of prescriptions kept his condition in check, adding years to his life. Just like Ernest Timmons, as discussed in part 1, Harding began refusing to take his life-saving medication, knowing that it would result in his demise. Also, just like Timmons, Harding died shortly thereafter in police custody before his case had even had a chance to go to trial. On August 10, 2006, Chuck Harding died in jail just days after turning 66. He left behind a sister and a heartbroken mother who passed away 4 years later in 2010.
Jeff Stacy was a U.S. Army veteran who was stationed in Vietnam. Stacy would become one of the most famous suspects on To Catch a Predator due to his iconic quotes as well as his high-pitched voice, which many have compared to that of Mickey Mouse. At the time of the 2006 sting operation in Ohio where he was caught, Stacy was a 27-year-old deli worker. He initiated contact with decoy Del Harvey, posing as a 15-year-old girl named Sadie. Right from the beginning, he steered the conversation to be highly sexualized. After going into great detail about the things he wanted to do with her, he asked to come over to the decoy's house and for her to greet him at the front door totally naked. The decoy declined, but Stacy persisted. He demanded that the decoy undress and remain nude while they were on the phone so that she would be, quote unquote, ready to get busy by the time he got there to pick her up. Upon arrival, he was greeted by the decoy from another room, claiming that she was still getting ready. He walked over to a bar stool where he was then approached by Hansen. When questioned by Hansen, his responses were an awkward combination of obvious lies and playing dumb. He attempted to convince Hansen that his explicit chat log with the decoy was nothing more than harmless talk and that he was unaware of the decoy's underage status. Aside from that, he expressed confusion as to why sexual activity with the minor was illegal. After Hansen explained how big of a deal it was, he seemed to realize the gravity of the situation to some degree and offered a feeble apology. He then claimed to be unable to distinguish between the internet and real life, which did absolutely nothing to help his defense. While being read his Miranda rights, he desperately pleaded for the officer to shoot him. When informed that he was going to jail, Stacy began to whine and threw a childlike temper tantrum. Just prior to his first police interrogation, he was temporarily uncuffed to sign a permission form allowing the police to search his car. Seizing the opportunity, he grabbed the pen and made a half-hearted attempt to stab himself in the throat. He was charged with attempted unlawful sexual conduct with a minor, which is a fourth-degree felony in the state of Ohio. He was found guilty and sentenced to a mere 6 months in prison, followed by probation. In addition to this, he was required to register as a sex offender for 10 years and complete a specialized counseling program designed for individuals who have had similar convictions. It's baffling that a dangerous child predator such as him can end up receiving such a relatively light slap on the wrist. Many have voiced their concerns about this, and rightly so. The sting in Greenville, Ohio took place in March of 2006. Jeff's dad died of cancer a year later in 2007. The last year of his father's life was painful enough from the cancer devouring his body. On top of that, his father's last year was plagued with shame and disgust over his son's very public downfall. Stacy served his time, and aside from a subsequent handful of serious but unproven allegations, he maintained a clean legal record for the remainder of his life. Following his incarceration, it's widely believed he began abusing drugs as a means of coping with the public shaming. On February 20th of 2021, Stacy drove his car to a Walmart parking lot. He never got out of his car. Concerned employees contacted the police after noticing that his car was in the same spot and he had been sitting in the same position for over 2 days. First responders pronounced him dead after no vital signs had been detected. His skin was a pale gray and his body was cold to the touch, suggesting he had been dead for a while. An autopsy revealed that he had died of an overdose from a combination of opiates and benzodiazepines. He died just a few days prior to what would have been his 42nd birthday. He left behind 3 brothers, 3 sisters, a wife, a son, and a daughter, as well as 1 granddaughter. Shortly after he died, police discovered an email in which his wife claimed that he had been abusive and assaulted her against her will on multiple occasions. She continued living at their residence after his passing. But now that Jeff's income was completely gone, his widow was sadly unable to pay the rent. As a result, his widow received a court-ordered eviction notice in July of 2021. Instead of going quietly, she decided to set her apartment on fire. A neighbor's apartment also burned down that night as a result. His widow was also caught breaking and entering into another apartment in an apparent attempt to steal prescription drugs.
James Wiles. James Wiles, better known by his handle hambubger, was a retired truck driver from Jacksonville, Florida. After meeting a decoy claiming to be a 13-year-old girl in a chat room online, he became quickly enamored with the decoy. He told the decoy he was in love with her and wanted to move their relationship to the next level. His graphic conversation with the decoy made clear beyond a doubt his intent to have sex with her. When confronted by Hansen, he claimed this could not have been his intent, as his severe ED made it impossible for him to engage in intercourse. Though this was the first time the Tcap team had ever heard this particular excuse, it didn't fly, and he was promptly apprehended by police. After bailing out of jail, he went on the run. Not long after this, he was caught again hiding at his mother's house. While in jail before his conviction, he began refusing to take his medication for an undisclosed medical condition rumored to have been some form of heart disease. Like Timmons and Harding before him, Wiles knew his refusal to take his medication would lead to his death. He died in 2010 at the age of 66. His death behind bars was reported to have been quite painful. When his daughters received the news that he had passed, they threw a celebratory party. Only one of his daughters chose to visit him on his deathbed, but not to say goodbye. When the daughter was interviewed by Hansen, she told him the only reason she visited her father's deathbed was to get, quote, a picture of him dying, unquote. The self-inflicted deaths connected with To Catch a Predator force us to reckon with difficult questions about media responsibility and the limits of public shaming. It raises further questions about the psychological toll the show's methods might have had not just on the accused, but also on their families. While protecting children from predators is undeniably crucial, the methods employed by the show must also take into account the mental and emotional well-being of all involved. It is crucial to strike a balance between ensuring public safety and respecting individuals' rights, mental health, and due process, no matter how sick and twisted they are. In conclusion, the tragic outcomes associated with To Catch a Predator serve as sobering reminders of the ethical concerns surrounding reality TV and the responsibilities of broadcasters when dealing with serious, real-life issues. The show's intent to protect vulnerable individuals was commendable, but its methods have proven to be controversial and, in some cases, devastating.
Hey everyone, Drew here from Mad Cat Mysteries, and I hope you enjoyed the video you just watched. If you did, you can click on the subscribe button below. I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.